Hi, welcome back. Now it's part two, and what we're going to do is go through the tools that I use. Once we know what the engineering is and what we want to sell, the important thing, and this is where most engineering gets lost, is between the engineering reports and to the menu. So we want to use these tools, so we put the menu together so we can add profitability to the items that we want to sell. So as I get started, I want to show you this is an old technique. It's a signature spotlight. This is when we make a little symbol and we put it next to the item, and then it brings the attention. You want to put this out on the out in the column in front of the item, so it will stand out, and it will show that these are signature items. And at the bottom of the page, put these are our signature specialties. Highly recommended by our chefs, so they will understand that these are some of the best items in the restaurant. So you might think about reducing your logo down, using a thumb like this, some symbol that'll show the spotlight. And remember, I had one client who Dean Peterson in Denver, Colorado. Dean loved, we called these dingbats. And Dean wanted to put a dingbat next to everything. And I said, well, Dean, the more dingbats you use, the less it means. All these tools that I show you, the more you use, the less they're going to mean. So try and use one or two per category, and a category being steaks or seafood or sandwiches. Those are categories. So try and use only one or two. When you name an item, I want you to name it with the item in the title of the item. If you call it Joe's Special, then people don't understand what it is. They have to read the copy, and they have to read the menu description to figure it out. But if you call it Joe's Lasagna Special, now they know that it's lasagna, and they can navigate to that or away from it. Try and keep it easy so a person can navigate to the menu item title and not have to read the description unless they're interested. Fonts and different typefaces in the for your menu. I recommend that we use serif typefaces if we can. Serif fonts here are on the left. They have the little feet underneath them. Do you see how the little feet make an imaginary line underneath the type? It's easier for a guest to read the description because it's got serif typeface. Every magazine and every newspaper has always used serif typefaces because they're easier to read, and you can read 9 words more per minute, according to the newspaper industry, with a serif font rather than a sans serif font. Now look, a sans serif is more difficult to read, but because we know this, we want to use a sans serif typeface, we'll make it a little bit larger so it's easier to read again. Now, the reason you would use a sans serif typeface is because we're a hip, cool restaurant or a bar, meaning serifs seem to give you a more of an old-fashioned look, but sans serif typefaces give you a newer, fresher look and more modern. So it says hip and cool. So if we're a hip and cool place, we want to use a sans serif typeface. Just understand the principles of it as you put your menu together. Now we might add boxes. Notice how when we put together items like this and then we add a box to it, the box draws your eye. An eye is drawn because when you see a sea of type or a sea of descriptions, your eye is going to go over it, but when you put a box around it, it will direct your eye to it. An eye is going to find what's easiest on the page to read. A picture or an illustration, which we'll get to in a few minutes, are easier on the eye than reading type. Reading type is work. So, so use a box when you can, and it's a great tool because it draws the eye over to the item and will help sell those items. Now, logo an item. This is a tool that that not many restaurants do, but it's a great tool to use. This is when you have an item, a menu item, and you want to sell it, so create a logo for it. You know, just like the logo of your restaurant is like type treatment. And so your logo will say to your guest, this item is so special that it gets its own logo. It's very special. And then you can go and put your logo on your T-shirts or hats and sell them as merchandise. Remember, you're upselling that item. You're bringing attention to the item that. So drinks, this is a great tool to use for drinks. If you have some specialty drinks that everybody knows, go ahead and do a logo for it. Put that logo on the drink menu, and all of a sudden that drink becomes so cool that it's going to sell more just by adding that logo. I like illustration better than photography because illustration is more of a fantasy. And here you have Trader Vic's menu, where when they would show you this menu, your brain would go on vacation to Tahiti or Bora Bora or wherever it was that the drink was from, and it's more of a fantasy. Now in today's chains, what they'll do is they'll take a picture of the drink and it will just look like a drink in a glass, and there's no fantasy or no oh wow to it. What I want you to do is add the oh wow to your drinks and your oh wow using illustrations, because illustrations, although they can be more expensive than photography, I highly recommend you use them because they stand out. They are easier on the eye. They draw your eye to it. Photography, yeah, this is bad photography, but most photography is pretty bad. So, you know, when we set up food shots, they're very expensive and they're very intricate. I highly recommend illustrations over this photography. Reading words that are in all caps, they're harder to read. But if you put it in upper and lower case, see at the bottom of the this slide, you'll see that it's easier to read. All caps are screaming. It's like your grandma sent you an email with the cap lock on. It screams at you, is harder to read. So use upper and lower case as you're putting your menu together. When you put your menu together and you put, let's say you have your pizza section, don't just put cheese, put pizza at the top as the category title, and then put cheese and then pepperoni and then buffalo chicken, because a guest likes that reinforcement of seeing cheese pizza or buffalo chicken pizza or buffalo chicken salad. So you describe it and it makes it stronger, the item stronger, and they don't have to think. The whole idea here is you want to put this menu together so your guest doesn't have to think, and they read it easier and quicker and find their item that they're looking for as quick as they can, so they'll start adding on items, as I said before. Use pedigree items. Pedigrees are when you've got different logos. Look through your storeroom for different logos. Are you using Ghirardelli chocolate? It's a perfect one. If you're not using Ghirardelli chocolate and you're using Hershey's, then and your concept that works for your concept, that's great. But think about buying an item that you can put their logo, not their logo on the menu, but the name of the food in the description, because that tells the guest that you're buying good quality stuff here. So in the old days, we would put the logos of all our sponsors for the menu on the menu, but we don't do that anymore. But just build in the words Dole Pineapple or Ghirardelli chocolate or whatever it is to the menu description, and that will elevate all your items to a higher level because you're using the good stuff. Testimonials. I love putting testimonials on menu items. It helps bring attention to them. So if it was seen on the Food Network or You see it, some writer or blogger wrote it up. Put the blogger's name on the menu and bring attention to that item so it stands out. Decoys. Decoys are a fun tool to use. This is when we have the huge stake, or when I worked on a resort up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the owner of the resort had a 60-foot yacht he was trying to sell. So we put the 60-foot yacht with a New York stake and put it on the menu for $350,000. Well, that was so crazy. That's what a decoy is. It gets your brain off of it, and it sparks some conversation, and it gets people's dopamine going. That's what these do. And so they make you happy, and you go, oh, this is silly, and then you'll order something that's less expensive, but it's throwing the pricing out of the game. So try and use them. Kitchen sink. This is not only a decoy, but like a positioning item. And what a positioning item is you just because you have this big banana split doesn't mean that we're going to sell a lot, but it will sell more bowls of ice cream or sundaes or whatever just by putting a big item on the menu. So think about what you can do. Again, we don't care if we sell it or not. What are we going to lose if we don't sell it? The key is it will sell more of other things. So it's a decoy. Dan Ariely is a professor at Duke, loves decoys and the whole concept of it. Now let's talk about the gaze motion on how a person reads a menu. When they read a one-panel menu, they'll start at the top and go down and read it 1, 2, 3, and then they'll go look for what they're looking for. A one-panel menu, people won't order as much food and they will order quicker. So if we want people to be in and out for lunch, we use a one-panel menu. If we use a two-panel menu, this is how the eye goes over the menu. It starts at 1, goes up to 2, over to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then shoots back to 2. And even on a computer screen, this is the layout for the computer screen. The top of the right-hand side is the strongest, and that's where we want to put our best section, like our steak section or our seafood section. This is where we want to put the best stuff. A three-panel menu, the old textbook said that your eye goes over the middle the most, but I found that people respect the far right side. They'll start at 1, go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then shoot back to 2. Well, on a three-panel menu, if we didn't want to sell something, if we had a category like wraps or sandwiches or something that we didn't want to sell as much as the other items like steaks and seafood, I'd put those on the back of this menu. But of course, we're going to screw that up once we start adding boxes and different logos and everything that we've talked about here. Now, when you're doing a one-column, you do a layout on a menu, I like you to use one column. And one column is easier to read. And if at the top of the list, the menu item is too expensive, let's say it's steak and lobster, and it's just is too scary to put that item at the top of the list, then move that all the way down to the bottom, to the number 6 spot here, because that will change how a person looks at the menu, and that first item won't. Now, if you have to do 2 columns, and again, I recommend 1 column over the 2 column, but put the number 1, then the second most on the second side, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, and then bring down some item to the bottom of the list, because that will be, again, the bottom of the list is a good spot. It's not number 1 or 2 spot, but it's a good spot to pull something down. Notice that this is all wrong, okay? This has all the wrong tools. It's got the item lists, it lists the prices. See where you have the leader dots over to the prices? That makes a guest look up and down the price list, find the cheapest item, and then go over to the left to find the item. Don't want to do this. This menu also has dollar signs on it. I don't like to use dollar signs. They remind people of money. So by removing the $sign, it softens the prices of all the items. Think of $150 signs, then you've got 150 items. If you take all those $signs off, that softens everything and makes it feel better and not look as expensive. So this is the before menu, and I love it that the grilled cheese sandwich, the worst item on the profit list, is up at the top of the right side. The best spot on the menu has the least profitable item on it. Well, we fixed that. This is the after menu, and we've got the steak section goes to the top of the list up here. The grilled cheese is over here on the left side at the bottom of the burger and sandwiches list, but it's still on there. It has no copy. But see how this whole menu changed when you start adding descriptions to it and make the items stand out and the items look stronger and they have more value. The more description you add to an item, the more value you're giving that item. So here's another before and after menu. This is the Keg Steakhouse out of Canada years ago. It did this menu. This was the before. They had 3 prime ribs sizes. When you have 2 sizes, people will go to the smaller, but if you do 3 sizes, they'll typically go to the middle. So that's a good thing on this menu, but otherwise, notice how it's got the price list, it's got the $signs, and it goes all the way across the page. Fix that menu, and here's the fix to it. See how I put the Keg Classics at the top and build the steaks, and the prime rib at the top, and then the chicken and the combination. So the whole menu is created where people will go to the more profitable items, and I know that this really worked and had huge success to it. Here's a menu that the art director letter spaced the items across it and then put the description underneath it. There are too many items on this. We'll talk about that in a minute, but my point here is when you make a person read across the page, it's harder to read. If you put things in columns, it's easier to read. So notice here, I've put the items in columns. Think of a newspaper. It's laid out in columns, so it's easier to read. Pricing format, how a pricing tells your guest a lot about your restaurant. If you have a $9.95, now I'm talking about the 95s on these prices. And so the 95 on the $9.95 here, it says, hey, come on in. We're glad you're here. It's a very friendly price. It's very easy on you, and it says it's very nice. Where $10 is a hard price. It says, hey, if you've got a lot of money, it's expensive here. It says we're more expensive. But let's go up to the $9.99. The 99 says we're trying to trick you. It's only 1 penny off. We're only 1 penny off, and so people don't trust you as much. So I like the 95 over the $10 or 10 with no OO on it. Now the W Hotel would never use a $9.95 or a $9.99, but they would use a 10 or a 10 with no OO because this is their concept. They're an upscale concept, so it works for them. So they should be doing their prices with OO pricing. We don't want you to understand the price. We spell it out. $10. If you spell out the prices, it's harder to understand the prices as you put your items together. $9.88 or $9.66, $9.55. These are Walmart prices. These are discount item prices. We don't want to use them. I've done it in restaurants. Doesn't feel good. So try and stick with what fits your format of your restaurant. Are you a $9.95 place or are you a $10 place? I work with the team up at Cornell a lot, and one year I asked them, I said, tell me, everybody wants to know how many items should be on a menu. And they came back to me and said, look, we don't know how many items should be on the menu, but we know that in each category, stick to 5 to 7 items, okay? And you'll see a lot of research on this, why phone numbers were 7 items max the old days, because people could remember 7 items, 8 items, 9 items, overwhelm. When a person overwhelms, they'll default to what they know. So they'll default to the easiest item. So try and keep your category, and when I say category, this is like the steaks or the seafood, try and keep those 5 to 7 items, and you'll be just fine. I hope you enjoyed going through these with me. I know that once you get your menu in place, and you can use all these tools in your tablet menus now that you're using, and you can use them in your disposable menus or on chalkboards. I know it's tough out there. I know it's tough. I've knocked my prices down by 50% to help people, and I just want to make sure that when you get out there, you know, you're extra safe, extra careful. And thanks so much for listening to making your menus better. Thanks. Bye.